Welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are talking about on Monday, the 18th of August. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Jessie Stevens.
And I'm Amelia Lester. Sorry, Sally and I were just communicating then.
I wonder if Sally sits in on our record. Like she wouldn't like it. She doesn't like whining. She wouldn't like our show very much. Okay, here's what's on our agenda for today.
A wedding, a singles list, and the question of an awkward setup.
Melania Trump's letter of peace, and that time her husband couldn't close a war-ending deal with his great mate Vlad in the back of a car. I think I've got all those details correct, haven't I, Amelia?
And why Taylor and Travis are leading the charge for the return of the himbo.
But first,
maybe there is such a thing as bad publicity. e.l.f. Cosmetics, makers of your favourite $6 eyeliner, they're known for pushing the envelope in their advertising campaigns. They were the first beauty company to buy an ad at the Super Bowl, and these have since featured Jennifer Coolidge from White Lotus, a reunion of the cast of Suits. They love a bit of publicity around their ads, but they may have gone a bit too far with their latest effort. It features the comedian Matt Rife. Now, rifling through your memory, do you remember Matt Rife?
I have bad associations with him. When his name was mentioned to me in relation to this story, I was like, he's that comic who.
He's that comic who. In 2023, he had a Netflix special called Natural Selection. And in that Netflix special, he made a joke about a restaurant server with a black eye. And he said that if she'd been better at her job, she wouldn't have a black eye. So in the e.l.f. spot, he's playing a low-rent lawyer, and here's what he says.
Hey, girl. Has overpriced beauty hurt your wallet?
e.l.f. that.
Alfino and Schmarns have gone to e.l.f. Court for millions of clients, helping them to access beauty products they deserve at prices that won't injure their livelihoods.
Just ask the e.l.f.ing people.
I know a thing or two about red flags, and pricey makeup, you deserve better than that.
So e.l.f.'s whipped out the Notes app on its iPhone, and it has apologised. It said they were only trying to spotlight beauty and justice, and they have conceded that they missed the mark. In the meantime, though, I guess we've all been reminded that e.l.f. is very good value for money, so well done to the advertising agency, right? Isn't that what they wanted?
Yeah, it feels as though sewing the lines of division is sort of a new form of publicity, because Matt Rife, what e.l.f. probably knew about him is that he has a TikTok following of almost 20 million, and 80% of that following is female, 75% are under the age of 34.
Wow.
They could not find a better match, right? But why Matt Rife is so... See, unpopular isn't even the right word, because those figures don't suggest he is unpopular. But controversial and with a particular side of the culture, he's very on the nose. The reason for that is that he grew his platform off a female audience. And there was this joke that women found him hot, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets this Netflix special. And
a joke. So they didn't find him hot.
No, they do find him hot. He's a hot young comic, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they built him. They build Matt Rife.
And that's unusual for a male stand-up. I did not realise this.
And then he gets his Netflix special. And in all the interviews and promo he does, he basically says, I don't pander my career to women. This special is mostly for guys. And it became clear that he didn't value his female base, and that in fact within comedy, a female base isn't very well respected.
He wanted to push them away.
He wanted to push them away because it was an embarrassment that his fans were women.
Yeah, comics can be very snooty about this stuff, right? So they would have been like, oh, TikTok comic, just because you're hot.
Yeah. And so he kind of pushed them away. And then for e.l.f. to elevate him as someone who's going to sell to women when he has sort of mocked and undermined a female fan base, I think was what didn't sit right.
The thing that's interesting here is that, like, you know, the Sydney Sweeney jeans ad, like many other things, is it used to be that brands used to try and stay away from controversy at all costs. Brand safety, right? It's 101 that you learn when you're working in all kinds of content that's adjacent to advertising is brand safety. Don't put me near anything that might spark controversy. We don't want to be associated by that. Brands have learned that that's an old-fashioned way to go. They want to be close to controversy. There is no way in the world that e.l.f. would not have known that choosing Matt Rife for all the reasons that you've given, Jessie, massive following, lots of young women, was not going to upset people. But the thing is that the young generation who are following Matt Rife and buying e.l.f. cosmetics because they are their audience are very savvy. I knew about this story because my daughter, who's 15 and lives on TikTok, just bailed me up about it and said, have you seen what e.l.f. have done? You know, and she was upset about it. She said they've used Matt Rife, and she immediately just said to me, they're just doing it for attention. Everybody can see through it by a million miles. It's just shallow rage bait. And it's like, are we really going to fall for it again and again and again?
Yeah, but then at the same time, are we really not going to buy the $6 eyeliner, right? Like e.l.f. is
for sure.
front and center of like the global consciousness now. We're all thinking about it. People are saying boycott e.l.f. and there's all these TikTok videos, which is just contributing to more and more brand recognition. I think this strategy will work in terms of contributing to e.l.f.'s bottom line.
It did with the jeans.
Yeah.
The Sydney, you know, those jeans are up an enormous amount because everybody's talking about it. So it just shows that this associating yourself with something controversial has become bread and butter. First Lady Melania Trump has 2 Instagram accounts, a lot like your average teenage girl. But enough about that. She has a FLOTUS one where she posts about official business, like wearing sharp pencil skirts while urging people to be best. That's her campaign, be best. And she has a Melania Trump one where she sells her memoir and FLOTUS-themed Christmas ornaments. Like quite a few First Ladies before her, Melania is often wheeled out at times of humanitarian crisis, like the recent Texas floods that affect children in particular, to kind of sort of try to humanize and soften the president. But unlike other First Ladies before her, Melania hasn't always been that convincing in that role. Who could forget the famous "I don't care, do you" flak jacket that she wore when everybody was upset about her husband putting children in cages? Anyway, Donald Trump has been busy, he claims, trying to stop the war in Ukraine over the last few days, calling for a historic summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. Keen-eyed observers would remember that the president has long said that he would end this war on day 1 of being in office. In fact, CNN reports he said it more than 53 times on the record before he became president for the second time. It's been a lot longer than 1 day, and the war is not over. And at his latest stated attempt, rolling out the red carpet in Alaska for Putin to come and chat, he handed the president a letter from Melania, one that she posted to her work Instagram, kind of sort of pleading for peace. Here's how it starts. Dear President Putin, the First Lady's letter opens, every child shares the same quiet dreams in their heart, whether born randomly into a nation's rustic countryside or a magnificent city centre. They dream of love, possibility, and safety from danger. Some people are suggesting that this letter, that was very vague at what it was trying to say, was AI. But Trump has spoken before about how Melania has an important role in international affairs, specifically in Russia, Ukraine. I go home, he says, and tell the First Lady, you know, I spoke to Vladimir today. We had a wonderful conversation. And she says, oh, really? Another city was just hit. Amelia, it's your job to know what's going on in high-level foreign affairs. Is it usual for the president to hand a world leader an Instagram letter written by his wife?
Well, written by ChatGPT.
It's so interesting how scared Trump is of Putin. It really is obvious when you watch them interact. So as you mentioned, this summit that happened on Friday, which was ostensibly to end the war in Ukraine, to which the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, was not invited, Trump rolls out the red carpet for Putin.
Who is literally a wanted war criminal.
He is literally a wanted war criminal to countries that are signatories to the International Criminal Court. He rolls out the red carpet, invites him for a lift to the summit in his armoured limousine that the president drives and which does not have any kind of aides or bugs or anyone listening in on. So it's very unusual for the president to be having this secret private conversation with Vladimir Putin before their summit. And then after the summit, spoiler alert, nothing happened at the summit. The war is not over. Trump appeared almost flustered or dejected, I think is maybe a better word, about the lack of progress that was made. And for the first time, he said, there isn't a deal until there's a deal. And what I found interesting about that was he's saying there's no deal. When has Trump ever admitted that there's no deal? He says there's a deal even when there isn't a deal. So he kind of came out of this summit feeling bad about himself, feeling like maybe he didn't push Putin at all.
Do you think the letter, Melania's letter, which has been much analysed, was that at least some kind of – because I imagine it would have been quite heavily vetted, right? You don't just hand Vladimir Putin a letter. But do you think that was a broad attempt to say, hey, listen, we know that there are terrible things going on during this war, and I have to raise it somehow. Even my wife says I have to raise it somehow. Do you think that's what that was about?
I think that is a charitable, conceivable interpretation. And what's interesting is because Trump's so scared of Putin, he does outsource the difficult questions and the difficult points to other people, and specifically to women. So, yeah, I think it's conceivable that he said, Melania, write a note about the children because I'm too scared to bring it up. And then there was another moment like this because in the press conference afterwards, where Trump was looking dejected and sad, an amazing journalist for the US TV network ABC News actually asked the questions that Trump was too scared to ask. Let's hear a clip of those questions now.
Mr. Putin, will you agree to a ceasefire? Mr. Putin, will you commit to not killing any more civilians?
That was the amazing Rachel Scott of ABC News. So the question she asked, when will you stop killing civilians? When will you agree to a ceasefire? Why should President Trump trust you? These are all questions that Trump clearly didn't ask him. And the reason we know that is because Putin at this press conference was grinning. And he did a very rare thing. He spoke in English. Let's hear what he said in response to Trump thanking him for coming.
Speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Next time in Moscow.
Jessie, what was that letter? What was the ChatGPT letter from Melania? What didn't it say about? What was it trying to allude to, do you think?
This is the thing, is that it was so painfully unspecific. It didn't name where the children were from, what was happening to the children. It was about a vague sense of laughter in children's hearts and something about Putin finding that laughter again.
Well, he's famously funny.
Yes, exactly right. And that's what the children need, is a bit of a lull. Ukrainian authorities, this is the context that I think, can also be missed when you see pictures of two men in suits shaking hands and kind of this chummy relationship and this spectacle. What's actually underlying that is that Ukrainian authorities have verified the identities of over 19,000 abducted children. That's over the last 11 years. And this is abducted by Russia. So they have been forcibly transferred to areas under Russian control. They have been assigned Russian citizenship and then adopted into Russian families. Maybe their parents have been killed or their parents have been arrested and they have been adopted out.
One particularly chilling example I read is that some kids who were taken to a summer camp just never came home from the summer camp.
Like this is so horrific. And part of me feels slightly defensive of Melania, to be honest.
Because it feels like she was sort of trying to bring this up.
She was trying to do something. And the fact that she's from Slovenia, which is a country that in terms of proximity and politically is incredibly aligned with Ukraine, that part of the world, this is the biggest news story to them because what's happening in Ukraine is terrifying and is felt as though it could be a pathway to the rest of Europe. Like Russia has done this before.
Jessie, I have to interrupt here. I think we're ascribing too much to Melania. And the reason I can say this is because I am something of a Melania expert. I am one of a handful of people worldwide who has read her memoir from cover to cover.
Why would you do that?
I did it for wealth. And what I learned from that is that we project all sorts of things on Melania. Think about in 2016 when the Access Hollywood tape came out, when Trump had talked about grabbing women in a certain place. She wore a pussy bow blouse to the debate and people thought that meant she was saying, I'm really mad at Donald.
There was a lot of, remember the phase that was all like, blink twice if you want to be saved,
No,
Melania.
You know what? She doesn't want to be saved. The book is all about her love for Donald. She's the only person who really calls him Donald in his inner circle because apparently he hates the name Donald. That's why he calls himself Trump, but she calls him Donald. She talks about him as a unifying president. And then I want to just share with you one story that I think says it all about Melania and who she really is. It does not come from the memoir. It comes from Stephanie Grisham. She used to be Melania's right hand. She was all in on MAGA in the first administration. No one could accuse her of being a stooge for the other side. She worked with Melania on her Christmas decorations and on her galas and on her events. And she came to Melania on January 6, 2021, when the insurrectionists were storming the Capitol. Melania was taking some photos of some renovations she'd done at the White House because she's very proud of her renovations. Stephanie begged her to speak out. She knew that her speaking out and saying, stop saying you're going to hang the vice president, stop saying you're going to overthrow the democratically elected government, she knew that that would mean something to these insurrectionists if they heard it from Melania. She begged her, can you intervene? And you know what Melania said with her camera in hand in the ballroom, which she just decorated? No. She did not intervene.
Doesn't that prove, though, that Melania did not have to write this letter? Melania does not write letters. Melania does not insert herself. She has no part in politics. The fact that she even wrote the letter, which to me has just been it looks to me like it's been edited to within an inch of its life.
And you can't say the word Ukraine, and you can't say the word Russia, and you can't say anything about abducted
children. Doesn't that
children.
suggest that she does care?
But you can't save the children without getting to how to save the children. The letter says you could stop this with a stroke of your pen. How about she be actually brave about it and say you could stop this by stopping your stupid war? But she never gets there.
Amelia, next, Zelensky meeting with what happens next?
So in a sign of just how disastrous this summit was for Ukraine, because there was no deal reached, Putin made no concessions, he didn't agree to a ceasefire. Zelensky is making an urgent trip to Washington, D.C. today. And in a sign of how worried Europe is about it, 5 European leaders are coming along with him. The French, the British, the Italians, the NATO Secretary General, and the Commissioner of the European Union. So
because last time he got bullied on the world stage.
Last time he got bullied. Yeah. So they said to him, we're not going to let you go in alone here. Starmer and Macron and the others said, we're going to flank you basically to prevent Trump from bullying you, from writing roughshod over you, from making you concede territory that is yours to Putin to end the war. A journalist called Will Rahn in the Free Press knew nothing about Taylor and Travis when he sat down last week to watch the podcast interview heard around the world. More than 12 million people watched that podcast interview, but Will didn't know anything when he sat down to watch it. And yet he wound up finding their relationship dynamic oddly familiar. Here's what he had to say. He said, the comparison that comes to mind is the old sitcom trope of the dumb, goofy husband and the smart, sensible wife. This arrangement was inescapable for anyone who grew up watching television in the 90s and the early 2000s, as I know that Jessie and I did. From Home Improvement and The Simpsons to The King of Queens and Family Guy. So at the time, it's worth remembering that conservatives really complained about this dynamic. They said, why do men always have to be the dumb one? And there was a sense that women were getting a little too assertive in the domestic sphere. But then there was this interesting backlash where by the 2000s, we'd actually decided that that sort of dynamic was misogynistic because it means that the woman has to be the humorless, sensible one and the man can be the goofy one who the kids like. But now with Travis calling Taylor the smartest woman in the world and praising her use of complicated words, Rahn is making this case for straight men that actually the most sensible thing that they can do is find a partner who is smarter than them. As one Twitter user put it back in the day, I understand Taylor Swift now. It's every girl's biggest dream to be able to text their dog. And that's the vibe Travis is bringing to the table. Texting their dog. Okay, I feel uneasy.
So when I first read this, I also felt uneasy. I felt defensive about Travis. He's a very smart man. But there is no question they played up to this particular trope. And here's a little grab that explains it perfectly.
And I was making albums that were a little bit more esoteric, like folklore.
She's so hot when she says that.
You know what esoteric means.
I know. It's for specific following.
Exactly.
Wait, what?
So, he knows what that means. He pretends he doesn't know what these words mean, but he knows what they mean.
Esoteric means for a specific following, like a specific genre of people.
He knows what it means.
Okay.
He does like a pretty, I don't know what it means thing, but he knows all the words and he knows what they mean.
I don't know.
And he may not have read Hamlet, but I explained it to him.
There you go. Don't tell my middle school English teacher I didn't read Hamlet. Because I definitely was supposed to.
Spark notes.
It's all right. I watched The Lion King.
Right.
See, he knows what Hamlet is.
It's so.
Wait, Lion King is based off of Hamlet?
Yes.
This is what we're talking about.
I didn't know that about Lion King.
So
I didn't know that.
Well, sort of. Like, not really. But So throughout the whole interview, and I listened to the whole interview. I didn't watch it because, I have things to do. I listened while I did them in about 5 different sittings because it's 3 hours long. But this is played out a lot, this particular dynamic, which is where Taylor, who is, let's remember, a songwriter, a poet, says something arty and interesting, and Travis goes, "Oh, I love it when you talk like that." And then she goes, "Don't be silly, you know what it means." And then the third voice you can hear in that clip is his brother, who's obviously hosting. And you've got to remember that this is on their sports podcast, New Heights. And obviously the dynamic that these dudes have is they are sports bros who talk a lot about football, and they're clearly very smart and ambitious, but they're not meant to be intellectuals, right?
Amelia, why did it make you uncomfortable?
Well, just because I wonder what it says about where we're at feminism-wise. We're always sort of gauging the strength of feminism in the culture on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is Beyonce appearing in front of a light-up, life-size feminism sign, and 1 is the 50s. What does it mean that we're regressing to the idea of that 90s sitcom trope?
I don't think we are. I think we have evolved beyond it. That sitcom trope, I don't think was about a smart woman. I think it was about a straight woman. I don't think that Marge Simpson or like in Everybody Loves Raymond, that woman was barely characterized, really. It was the goofy, foolish husband, but he still really had the power. Whereas what I think is interesting in this dynamic, and I think within any couple, there is a dynamic that you perform it has grains of truth to it, but in public you kind of play it up because it's a bit fun. But in a relationship, especially when a man concedes that a woman is clever or funny, I think it's a concession of power. Like I've seen a lot of relationships where a man won't accept or kind of stifles those qualities in a female partner. Like I remember hanging out with this guy all the time. I was wondering why I was getting a weird vibe, and he did not laugh when a woman made a joke. To laugh at a woman and accept that she's funny and she's kind of, someone who you can see as a well-rounded human being is to elevate her. Like when you laugh at someone's joke, you're giving them a little bit of power.
Yeah.
And I think for Travis to sit there in awe of Taylor and the clever, arty things that she says, I thought that was kind of lovely.
The thing that's interesting to me about this is because this whole podcast is being held up as relationship goals, very large, right? Because they look absolutely besotted with each other. It is wonderful and refreshing how unthreatened he is by being on so many levels by Taylor Swift, and that they are clearly still absolutely crazy about each other. But extrapolating from that, as this headline did in the article you're talking about, marry a smart woman, it's like, what about the smart woman who wakes up in 5 years and realizes she's married to an idiot? No, I'm not calling, before everyone asks me, Travis Kelce an idiot, because he is clearly not an idiot, right? He is an intensely intelligent, ambitious, driven guy, and he obviously really loves how smart she is. But she is a musician deep in her soul. Like, she is an artist, right? She writes poetry, and you never hear him talk about music. He talks about her music, like he says, "You're amazing, baby," every 5 minutes. But in that whole GQ article, in this whole piece, she gushes and gushes in this interview about football because, like, with the fervor of an evangelist who's just discovered something, she's like, "I didn't even know what it was, and it's amazing," right? None of that is reciprocated by him about her passion, which is music and art. And I think it's gorgeous, and I wish them all the best. But the problem with the idea that women want to text their dog, and marry some guy who just thinks they're amazing and isn't very smart himself, is it might feel like a holiday at first, like a sort of delicious break for your brain. That he's got big Labrador energy, this guy, whether it's Travis or some fictional dog texting dude. Like, it's lovely and refreshing, but ultimately, don't you want someone you can talk to?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, but I want to say that this dynamic also is an interesting inversion of the 60s groupie dynamic, because, okay, it sounds funny to say that of Travis given that he has won 3 Super Bowls, but he's kind of the groupie in this situation, and we're so used to that being a woman, and specifically a decorative woman, or a woman who is perceived as decorative.
And he's very decorative. As in, he's very hot.
I think that's objectively true.
She talks about that a bit in the interview too.
And so I sort of love that. It does feel really subversive to say, in this situation, the man is the decorative groupie. And I don't know if we need to expect him to then also have a nuanced understanding of the lyrics of All Too Well, the 10-minute version.
I don't think that, but I just mean, if we're taking from, as we want to do, we see a dynamic like this play out and we go, that's what all relationships should be. It's like, well, maybe, but also I just would caution against the idea that you want to really, that there should be a massive mismatch in your interest and intellectual level at all. Like, I mean, obviously opposites attract and all those things, but marry someone smarter than you, is that blanketly good advice?
No. And I did a research study years ago about heterosexual love, and the big thing that came out of it when I interviewed, and it was mostly interviewing men, about what contributed to the longevity of their relationships. And they said intellectual equality, finding someone who was an intellectual equal. And that there can be something quite reductive about calling Travis not intellectual. Like, that's a very specific vision 100%. Of what smart is, right? Like
100%. He's clearly very smart.
Yeah, I think that what
he's very emotionally intelligent too.
Yeah.
He's not that.
He's not a poet.
But that bit that we just pulled out, that's the roles they're playing. Is that he's not book smart, inverted commas.
Right.
He didn't read Hamlet. He doesn't. She has to tell him what esoteric means. Like, that's what they're putting out there. To be clear, it's not like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I do think that there's something maybe transgressive about all of a woman's cleverness, having space for all of a woman's cleverness inside a heterosexual relationship. That does feel a bit fresh to me. Like the idea, growing up, like the vision was that history is full of stories of really intellectual, academic men who were just admired by their wives, right? Like, that's a story we told. I'm sure it was a lot more complicated.
And she brought the tea while he was,
while he sat there and wrote his books or his poetry. Like, the idea that, I mean, these people you would imagine have enormous egos. Like, their work is egos. But in that interview, what was refreshing was that it seemed like they were just in awe of each other for different reasons. And that was if people watch this, if young women watch this and go, oh, here's two people who treat each other nicely for 2 hours, then that feels like a great lesson.
I love it, and I love that they're standing that dynamic. But I'm just going to sound a word of caution, maybe from a woman who's been there, who knows, of like what might seem very exciting at first, because what's very clear in this conversation all the way through when they talk about their life together is how happy Taylor Swift is in Travis Kelce's world. She talks about it a lot, being at the family barbecues with kids being passed through the windows and all these giant men who protect her and all this stuff. Like, she clearly loves it. But I just might want to say that, in a few years when the shine wears off, you might just find yourself at a barbecue surrounded by giant men who only want to talk about football deals, and you're like, hold on, what happened to my esoteric poetry buddies? Which is only to say, we always talk about how romantic love can set us up to think that one person fulfills everything.
Yeah.
It's fine, but you just need to have your mates who you can go and talk about poetry. And
she has.
Yes.
She has Stevie Nicks on speed dial if she wants to talk about poetry.
She does. And so I think as long as you keep that posse of pals, it's fine.
I want to go back to a theory that we floated last week, because I floated on this podcast a theory that Taylor will be performing at the Super Bowl, and there had been Easter eggs. Well.
Get out your red string, people.
Oh my goodness, it blew up. We put the video on socials, millions of views, because the internet watched this interview and went, we are being fed Easter eggs. Can I tell you some of the biggest Easter eggs about the Super Bowl that are found within this video? The first one is that she kept joking about sourdough. She said...
she would just talked about sourdough for most of the conversation.
Yeah, all these references to sourdough and how she thinks about sourdough 60% of the time. What a strange thing to say. Well, the San Francisco 49ers are hosting the 60th Super Bowl next year, right? Oh, okay, 60, whatever. That's you're being a bit crazy. Well, the mascot of the San Francisco 49ers is Sourdough Sam.
Yeah.
Both the number and the mention of the bread type has been has sent
Sourdough
the Swifties.
Sam?
Yeah, that's a mascot.
That's a mascot?
Yeah. She also discussed how she's obsessed with numerology and she dropped a lot of numbers. So after Jason's intro, she said, thanks for the 47-second intro, Jason. Sounds quite off the cuff.
Oh my God.
Well,
they're so exhausting. These people are so exhausting.
Levi Stadium was the 47th stop on the Eras Tour, which is where the Super Bowl is being held next year.
Stop
and
it.
every time she dropped one of these Easter eggs, eagle-eyed viewers thought that they saw Travis with a little smirk. He couldn't help but just go,
no question.
Look how smart she is.
That's because he always has that little smirk with her. He's in awe of her.
So I listened to this whole thing, as I said, and it was very charming in many places. But the discussion of Easter egginess, it must be so exhausting. She talks about how much she loves it, how deliberate it is, and she says, but for your average person, they don't have to pick up on all this. I'm like, yes, we do, because it's all anyone talks about. The only thing I'm going to say about sourdough, right? Because you know me and how I love my gardening. So I relate to having a boring hobby that you want to tell everybody about and they don't want to listen. She talks a lot about how she sends him off to training camp with his freshly baked sourdough Pop-Tarts. Who even knew that was a thing? She's making sourdough with sprinkles in it for his nephews and for his nieces. She's making blueberry sourdough and it's very Meghan. It's coming off as intensely Meghan. There's a lot in this episode that it's really engaging and lovely, but it's also Taylor's era at the moment is housewife. No question. Housewife who works unbelievably hard because she also, the thing that comes across in this, which is amazing, is, she recorded this whole album while she was on tour and she was flying backwards and forwards between Sweden and all these places. And then she's clearly had 5 minutes off during the holidays and she has committed to being the world's best sourdough baker.
I love that. Friends, I'm going to tell you the story of a bride named Jessica Brander, who had a very original idea about what to do with the singles at her wedding. And I want you to tell me whether it is offensive or whether it's play on. Okay. Jessica is from New Jersey and she spoke to the New York Post last week about a cute little feature of her recent wedding. We like to do things that make things a little bit different, good for the Instagram. I love how in these stories, it's was the groom even there? There's no mention of the groom. I don't think there's a picture of him. He's unaware this happened.
He's not relevant.
He's not. He's what singles list? Why are you talking the New York Post? He's got no idea. Jessica put together a poster called the Singles Sheet. So she made it on Canva and it's like an A4 piece of paper, right? And it says at the top, tonight's most eligible.
Oh, my God.
And below are 30 pictures of all the single people in attendance. She thought it was a great alternative to a singles table and everyone knew it was just a bit of fun. Included on the eligible single sheet were the groom's grandparents. So I guess he did attend. He was there. I still don't think he knew that the grandparents were on it. So it wasn't it was all, young. It was just anyone who's single, here they are.
Ooh.
You simply will not believe this story, which started with a TikTok video. Garnered a lot of criticism, right? The internet just exploded. One comment said, if her face had been on that poster, she would have taken back her gift, and another described it as humiliating. I am desperate to know what you think because I had a very strong reaction. Amelia, what do you reckon? Is this play on?
Look, it would have been ideal if she'd gotten the agreement of everyone involved.
That's my number one question.
She's busy.
Did she get, because that's the only thing that matters. Did she get consent?
She did not. But after this story blew up, she messaged them and went, hey, were you offended? And they said they weren't.
No, that's why this is bad.
Who has time?
If she'd have got their agreement, it would have been fine. Anyway, sorry, Amelia.
I know it's controversial though. Look, I applaud the direction she was going in. I went to a lot of weddings in my single era and had a miserable time because I'd always have to be sussing out who was single there. And I discovered that a lot of people feel uncomfortable with the idea of being set up, but I love the idea of being set up.
So do I.
And I preach it to everyone. And it's because I have a theory about a thing called weak ties. Can I briefly explain this to you?
I haven't heard this.
I keep meaning to write a book about it.
Excuse me, Amelia, is that wheat ties as in wheat bix, or is that weak as in like not strong?
W-E-A-K.
It's your accent, Amelia. It really throws people.
So weak ties are the reason why you need to ask people to set you up if you want to be in a relationship. You know everyone in your social circle. Mm-hmm. You know them all. You know who's single. You know who's not single? The single people, there's a reason why you're not dating them, okay?
Yeah.
So there's no one in your immediate circle who you can end up with. Weak ties are the people beyond your social circle who you know, but you maybe don't know very well. Those people know the people that you can be in a relationship with. So an example might be, for instance, a barista that you have a particularly friendly relationship. Maybe a coworker you've never even gotten coffee with, but who you say hello to in the hall and smile at each other. These are people who you might feel a bit embarrassed to have you set someone up with, but you've got to ask them. You simply have to ask them. And so I made it my business when I wanted to be in a relationship of asking literally everyone I knew the name of to set me up with someone.
Tell me the words you used.
I said, do you know someone to set me up with? Well, and when they said no, I would say, that's a lie. You do. And then they go, well, there's this one guy. I'd be like, set it up. Make it happen.
You're confident. Because I would be nervous to say that to people, because if they said no, I'd be like, you don't want to set me up with anyone because you don't think there's something wrong with me.
You don't think I'm worthy. Because I felt like that, Amelia, but I don't have your directness. So I was waiting for people to just set me up without having to ask for it.
That's interesting. It never even occurred to me, this idea, because you think they'd be like, I don't know anyone, but they would, and they just wouldn't set you up with them.
I'm not recommending you to anyone. You know, I've got some single male friends who I would not recommend to anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're fine to have a drink with, but they're not a guy I would like any of my friends dating. If they said to me, why aren't you fixing me up with any of my your friends, I'd be like,
no, but that's weak ties. See, if a woman came to you and said, set me up with someone, but she was sort of a coworker that you didn't know very well, just say, like, I could ask you that. Like, if I needed to be set up with someone, you're an example of a weak tie. You're someone I'm friendly with, but I don't know all your friends.
Yeah,
and I could say, set me up with someone, and you'd rifle through them, and I guarantee that you could think of at least one person that you'd at least try and set me up with.
Yeah, I set a male friend up with an acquaintance, a female acquaintance who I really liked. I would have liked to be friends with her. And I set them up, and he didn't treat her very well. And then she never really spoke to me again.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. Like, another caveat here is if you do ask a weak tie to set you up, you cannot blame the weak tie for what happens on the date. You cannot blame them. It's not up to them. You insisted on it.
Okay, back to this woman.
So here's why I'm a big fan. Weddings are nothing but weak ties. Nothing but weak ties at weddings. Oh, yeah, that's my friend's friend who I met once at a 21st 15 years ago. I vaguely remember this situation. Oh, yeah, there's my, the person I played tennis with once who I don't know very well. Weddings are weak ties in action.
Okay. The problem with what this woman did, it would have been so fine if she'd have asked her friends if they wanted to. Because I think you said, Amelia, you had a singles table at your wedding, but it was opt-in.
So I had an opt-in singles table at my wedding. It did result in one liaison.
That's nice.
Which I think is pretty good.
But the problem with this is because she has basically put a poster up at a wedding that's like, look at all these single losers. That's basically what she has.
No.
She has because she didn't ask. Because the thing about being single, and like you, Amelia, I spent a lot of years going to my friends' weddings when I was single. And I didn't always want to be fixed up. I definitely didn't. Like, sometimes you're single, but it's okay.
That's not like me, Holly.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. It's like she's assuming, A, that all these people are miserable and lonely just because they're single.
No.
And she's assuming that they're all comfortable with having their relationship status being advertised. If you ask, it's okay, but if you don't ask,
I'm going to throw this back at you. You are assuming that there is a stigma to being single, and I think that's on you.
No, I'm not assuming that at all, but I'm not. When I was single, I was not all the time on the hunt. That is not what I was doing. And so if
sometimes you were just like, no, I'm just like genuinely not even interested in the perfect person for me who falls across my path.
Maybe I was secretly seeing someone, who knows, or maybe I was happy being single. You're all assuming that all the single people are not happy being single.
Oh, I completely disagree with you, Holly.
All the people who said I would be humiliated. That's why, because maybe they don't want to advertise their personal lives to all people they don't know at a wedding.
I see singledom as totally neutral. I don't think there's a stigma. I don't think that I judge anyone.
So why do they need their faces on a poster at a wedding?
Because the others can identify them that way.
Wear a special hat, wear a particular colour, turn your pineapple upside down. Like, maybe they don't want to be identified. It just reminds me of that scene in Bridget Jones where they're like, why haven't you met anybody yet? And she's like, all the scales beneath my clothes. It's like that.
No, I don't think anything about this poster suggests that you need to mingle, or that she expects you to go on a date, or that she thinks you're desperate, or that she thinks you need her help. Let's remember that one of the biggest traditions... She
put their face on a poster and handed it around a wedding.
Let's remember that what weddings traditionally do, and I didn't do any of this, but the bouquet toss, right?
No,
or the garden toss.
No one's doing that now.
No one's doing it, but there has always at weddings been a tradition around identifying single people.
And so when you're single and you're at a wedding, it's awful because everyone, maybe you'll catch the bouquet. Or maybe you'll catch the bouquet. Maybe you don't want to catch the fucking bouquet.
It's also an opportunity. Lean into the opportunity.
I've been sat at a singles table. I sat next to a guy I knew within 2 minutes I wasn't interested in. We had a lovely chat. I was quite isolated at this wedding because I didn't know a lot of people. I didn't have a +1 because I didn't deserve a +1 and I wasn't in a relationship, whatever. I think it's a way to just have people mingle, and I don't see an issue with that.
It's making the most of weak ties.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Only with consent. Leonardo DiCaprio has been interviewed by the director of his new movie. The movie is called One Battle After Another, which sounds...
Oh, God.
That man makes exclusively good movies and I will not hear a word against him.
God.
One battle after
another. It sounds like life. It sounds like everything. It sounds like 2025. Anyway, Paul Thomas Anderson is the director. He's very famous, very fancy. And he was interviewing Leonardo for Esquire. And among all the actorly chit-chat they had, Anderson asks him, I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to have to answer as quickly as you can. If you didn't know how old you are, how old are you right now? DiCaprio just says, 32. DiCaprio is 50, everybody. Jessie, the internet went wild. Why? Why might anybody be interested in how old Leonardo DiCaprio is as opposed to how he feels? I can't imagine. Can you imagine?
Well, I imagine that this is a jab at the age of the women that he dates, because he famously, when they turn 25, he's like, see ya, I'm trading you in for a younger one.
His new one. Well, actually, she's not that new, but his current girlfriend is 27.
Oh, wow.
So he's broken the hoodoo.
Oh, my goodness.
But still, he's 50.
But I think there is something profoundly relatable about what Leonardo DiCaprio is saying, because there is this phenomenon of, as you grow older, not feeling your age. I remember there was this Atlantic article about it years ago, but there's also this really famous quote by a poet named George Open, and he says, what a strange thing to happen to a little boy. He's talking about aging, and he says that as he gets older, he looks in the mirror and there's a little boy inside, but he's got these wrinkled hands and this face that isn't consistent with how he feels. And I was reading this, it's this Substack all about kind of ideas about aging. And another one says that if you're a young person and you're talking to an older person, you should know that to you, that person is way older, right? But to the older person, they probably feel exactly your age. And how...
So what you're saying is Leonardo's 27-year-old girlfriend and the 24-year-old girlfriend before that and the 24-year-old girlfriend before that.
They see him as 50.
He's got a lot of weak ties.
They think that Leo's just a little bit older than them. No, they think that Leo's quite a lot older than them, but Leo thinks that he is the same age as them.
He's like, I just turned 30. Yes. I turned 30 last week. Holly, how old do you feel?
I think I feel 40. I would like to feel 30, but I think I feel 40.
I read something that said that people get stuck at 40. That's a thing.
Yeah, I definitely understand what Leo's talking about in the fact that as you get, 50 is a big number and I'm just over 50 these days. And it is sometimes confronting, jolting to be like, whoa. And when people relate to you in a way that makes it clear that they think you're significantly older and you do think like Leo does, that I'm just down hanging out with my hot girlfriend and we like all the same things and she and I are on TikTok and it's great. I understand it. But if I was Leo, I think I'd be a little more self-aware about that answer. Don't you think?
Oh, no.
Because Leo is just one of the latest line of the Gen X icons who perpetually disappoints me. He was so cool. And now he's just hanging out with Jeff Bezos, flying around on private jets, going to those kind of weddings. He and all the others that are either dating, they're terrified of women their own age, or at least women who look their own age. Bezos, his wife, Lauren Sanchez, is older, but she certainly doesn't look it. They've just become such laughable cliches of the men who never grow up. And wouldn't it be more interesting if he was like, I feel every one of my 50 years, but I still like 27-year-old underwear models.
It's not true though. Amelia, how old do you feel?
Yeah, I feel about 35. I think it's hard to feel your age as you get older. One thing that's made me think about is, do you think that people can lie about their age in the age of the internet and radical transparency anymore? Because I have one person in my life who I obviously am not going to get into the details of who it is. I'm pretty sure that person has shaved a year off their age between the ages of 40 and 50.
And 1 year is a very specific shave to do.
Well, maybe they're going to do one for each decade going forward. But I just think it's much harder these days than it used to be.
I understand why women do it 100%. And men, I guess. I'm not Leonardo DiCaprio, but I'm quite tempted to lie about my age now. Quite tempted. I'd quite like to just stay at 50.
Yeah.
And or rather never talk about it, just because, like it or not, we live in a very ageist society. And there's something where you can be working really hard to try and reclaim that, but there's something you're fighting against. It's not just about how you look, it's about lots of things. So I'm quite tempted to stick at 50. I interviewed someone recently who refused to tell me how old they were, just absolutely refused. And I followed up to ask, and they still said, no, I don't talk about it because it immediately pigeonholes me and I don't want to do that. And so I get it.
I've also heard that the age you are, you can't tell the age accurately of anyone below your age, but you can continue to tell it for people above your age. And that's certainly true. Yeah. I went back to my high school last week for a careers night. And I'm pretty sure that the questions people were asking me kind of insinuated that they thought I was on the verge of retirement. Like, I think everyone who's like over the age of 30 to a young person is probably 70.
Oh, poor Leo. His girlfriend thinks he's 70. She's like, why are you still making those movies? When are we going to be on the yacht 24/7?
Aren't you going to die soon, Leo?
That's all we've got time for today, Out Louders. Thank you for being with us on this Monday, as always, and thank you to our brilliant team for putting the show together.
We will be back in your ears tomorrow, and of course, you can watch us just like our friend Taylor. You can watch us on YouTube.
Will you gaze at me lovingly? Actually, I gaze at you lovingly and go like, I love it when she says those long words. She's so smart.
You're so smart. You're so smart.
I know what esoteric means.